What's going on, YouTube? It's been about 4 months since I've put a video out about the car. It's been down since last November of last year. It's been towards the end of November when that converter head went down. And I'm still waiting on the turbo kit to come in, but finally getting to the motor. I did decide to go ahead and build it instead of running the stock internals. With the new turbo setup, pretty much the rods are definitely going to fail as far as the stock ones. So I figured I'd update you on most of the parts I've got in and how it's coming along. You can tell the car hasn't moved at all. It's dusty, needs to be cleaned. It's been sitting there for months. Like I said, that turbo kit was on a 4-month back order. Supposed to be getting it here in a couple weeks. So pretty excited about that. But we'll go ahead and get to the engine parts. Originally, I was gonna sleeve. I had decided I wanted to sleeve this thing, but I didn't really have time for it. I don't want to have any more downtime. So there's another method that's supposed to help support those cylinders right there. Pretty much what happens on the stock ones, you can see how thin that sleeve is right there. You might be able to see it. It's right around the edge. You see about an 1/8 inch. Normally they would actually bore those out and put a thicker sleeve in, like a Darton sleeve or something like that. And obviously it keeps it from cracking out up there by the water jet. Like I'll show you in this picture. This usually happens under extreme cylinder pressures. So there's another kit out there that which is just supposed to support those water jackets, and I'll show you what those are. There's these little pieces that slide down in the water jacket there to help support this area right here to keep it from breaking out, like you seen in that picture earlier. What these do is they'll slide right down into there, and you would need to center them up. See it right there. And it helps support that to keep that from breaking. And what holds it in place is, you'll notice here on the top side, you notice those holes drill right through there on each one, and they're threaded. There's a set screw that goes in the top and the bottom that holds it in place and keeps it from moving around. And supposedly they say it's good for 1,200, 1,300 wheel horsepower. It's a pretty cheap solution if it does work. So I figured I'd go ahead and give it a try, and I'm not that worried about it. I think it'll hold up. Eventually, if I were to sleeve it, the motor would probably be good for somewhere around 1,800 horsepower or so. I've seen other people do it with the setup that I'm about to show you, as far as rods and pistons. So we'll go take a look at that. Here you can see one of these stock rods. These have got probably 200 to 300 passes down the track, a lot of street runs. There is not a thing wrong with them, no signs of any cracking or nothing bent. Rings are still good. Like I said, there was no issue at all when I pulled these out. I just, like I said, I pretty much last minute decided I'm going to go ahead and build it, just because I figured my new turbo setup would send one of these out the side. So let's go ahead and take a look at those new parts that I've got. These are the oil squirter block off caps, and what they do is you completely take off the oil squirters from the motor, because my new rods would actually hit those. There'd be clearance issues there, and they're not needed on my new rods and pistons. So I'll show you those. You can see them right down there. There's one. There's one there. All those come out, and you actually gain 8 horsepower by removing those. They've actually proven it. But you just take those out, and you see these. You see that little plug right there? It pushes down into there, and you just put that bolt right back in and hold it down in place. So none of those will be there. I went ahead and got boundary oil pump gears as well, and the crank sprocket. Just I like to rev it a little higher without risk those stock oil pump from breaking. Didn't want to risk that. I've got the new head gaskets right here. bank 1 and 2. Then I went ahead and got the ARP main studs, and I got the ARP head studs. I got all new bearings for it. You can see the bearings over there. Them are the rod bearings. And I've also got main bearings here somewhere. I just have to find them. And all new rings. Everything there. A whole set of 8. Here is the pistons I went with. I went ahead and went with the CP pistons. They're going to be about 10.5 to 1. Stock, the Gen 2 Coyote is a 11 to 1 compression. It's fine running 11 to 1 compression, but me, once in a while, I have ran 93 in it, and it was such high compression, you can't run a lower octane like that. So I did decide to go with 10.5. Hopefully that gives me a little bit of room to run a couple of different fields. So let's go ahead and pull a piston out and see what it looks like. Okay, open it up here. There you can see it. It is a, like I said, it's a CP piston. Shouldn't have any issue at all running these. I've heard a lot of good reviews about them, and there's a lot of people running these. So that's why I went with those. And I've also got another motor for one of my other cars that I've built with CP pistons, and so far I've liked it, not had any issues at all. And another thing that a lot of people forget to do when they go high horsepower like this is upgrade to the thicker wrist pins. And originally I did order the thicker ones, and they had actually messed up when they shipped them, and they sent me the thin ones. You can see right there. You can see how thick those are. Now if you look at the new ones I've got, let's go ahead and open it. You can see the difference in the thickness of that wrist pin. The one on the left is a stock size, and the one on the right is the new thicker ones. So they shouldn't oval out, and they're capable of a lot more horsepower. I decided to go with the Manly I-beam rods. I thought about going with the H-beams just because they're a lot cheaper, but the H-beams are rated at somewhere around 900 horsepower is what Manly rates them at. These here, people have made over 1,800 horsepower on them. I think they're rated at somewhere around 1,500 to 1,600. They are the I-beam ones. Each one is has got the weight on each end in grams. So we'll go ahead and pull one out and take a look at it. There you can see how big that thing is. They're a huge upgrade from stock. Of course, they do weigh a lot more, but for the power they can hold, you know, something you kind of got to do. But they look good. They got a good finish on them. They come with the ARP rod bolts, so that's a plus. And I'll go ahead and show you how they look. I'll put one together for you, one rod and piston, and set it next to a stock one just so you can see the size difference in them. Here you can see the difference. Here is your stock one, and there's the new one. You can see how much wider that thing is. It's just all around bigger. There you can see the difference in the wrist pins, a lot better. You see how thick that one is. Look at that one over there, is a lot thicker. Of course, having the thicker wrist pin and a bigger rod added quite a bit of weight. It actually weighs, this one over here weighs 86 grams heavier than the stock one, which is big as far as weight difference on a rotating assembly. So the crank did have to be balanced. I had it balanced here. Normally they've got holes drilled down into here, and there's usually a hole where they take quite a bit of weight out to balance it. These are the counterweights. And the machine shop actually had to fill all those back in, and they barely drilled just a hair right there and on the bottom one there. To keep it balanced, because like I said, 86 grams difference on a rotating assembly is not going to last long. Them bearings are going to get taken out pretty quick, and you'll be rebuilding it pretty soon. And you can see on that end too, where they added in the holes that Ford had drilled out were all filled back in, and they did they made small drills here and whatever their balancing machine told them to do, I guess. On the injectors, I normally have always liked to run IDs. My last set was not IDs, but it did come with that turbo kit when I got it. But I decided to give some other injectors to try that I have not used before. These are the Fuel Injector Clinic. They're the 1200 cc's. I've heard a lot of good about them. They are E85 compatible, and I think they're rated at 1200 cc at like 43 or 44 psi fuel pressure. I'll be running somewhere around 70 psi on the boost reference, so they're going to be flowing a lot more than 1200 cc's. They'll probably be 1300, somewhere around 1400 with the fuel pressure I'll be running through them. So they should hold up for this season. I don't think I run them out. And of course I have to upgrade my fuel system because it's already been running out on the old injectors. I'll probably go with some triple pump setup. I haven't decided for sure. I know Lethal Performance makes a good one, and there's a couple other companies out there that all make good fuel systems. I also had the heads milled on the bottom side just to make sure everything was good. The machine shop went and milled them just a hair, made sure they're flat, got them clean. Everything looks good on them, so I don't think we'll have any issues there. I'm just going to be running the stock cam, stock valve springs. No need to upgrade those. If anything, I would lock the cams out, but I don't have the lockout, so I will be running the variable cam timing on this setup. I know some people had issues with a higher horsepower like this, but we'll find out soon enough. I think it'll be just fine. The transmission, see the Turbo 400 right there? That is what made me take it apart. It went out last, you remember, somewhere around November, that last video I had out. Since then, the trans has been taken apart. It went through all new clutches in it. It's got all kinds of new parts in it. It's got a new oil pump in it. I can't even name all the parts that went in that one. So it should be good for a whole new season. And here is the new converter I went with. Like I said, I planned on going with PTC, and that's what I did. I got them to spec me one. I haven't even opened this thing yet. So we're gonna go ahead and see if we can open it and take a look at it. There it is. That one is supposed to be spec'd for somewhere around 1200 to 1300 wheel horsepower. Hopefully it holds up a lot better than that transmission specialty converter did. I've ran through 2 of those already, and from what I hear, these here seem to be one of the go-to converters. I don't think I have any issues out of it, and I should gain quite a bit of ET because we had actually determined that my last converter at wide open was actually slipping a lot because it could not hold the horsepower that I was making on the old setup. So it was a no-brainer for me. There's no way I was going back with that converter because I'd actually messaged them about it and they didn't even get back to me. So if you want to go with a converter, I definitely would not go with the transmission specialty. They don't hold up to the horsepower that they say, and they don't stand behind them at all. This here comes with a 3-month warranty. If you have any issues with it, you can send it back to them, or if you need the stall adjusted, they'll do that for you. So I would highly recommend you go with one of these converters. You've pretty much seen all the parts that I've got now, so I'll probably finish this video off here, and the next video will show the assembly on here. It'll show me putting everything together. I've got all the parts to do it. I just haven't had a lot of time. I've been working on a lot of other cars, tuning, building cars, so I finally have a little bit of time to work on my own. Once the turbo kit comes in, should be able to have everything done within 4 or 5 days once I start on it, so that shouldn't be a big issue there. So this will be the end of this video, and like I said earlier, I'll update you as soon as I start putting that block back together.